Hi, my name is Brian Lewis and I work for J10S. I'm an instructor on the public works side. Today's presentation is on hazards of bad dogs and how to deal with those bad dogs or any animal. Before we get started or too far into the presentation, I'd like to ask you to pause this video, take a few minutes and discuss any near misses or accidents you may have had in the past month. After you finish that discussion, go ahead and press play again. Then we'll continue our presentation. I hope you've had a fruitful discussion and that you've talked about all the near misses that anyone was willing to talk about, and that you've gotten all that straight on what you need to do, any changes you need to make, and policies or procedures to make sure people don't get hurt or anything like that. So when we talk about bad dogs or any animal that's being aggressive, it's important that we maintain training, that we're all educated on what the policies and procedures are at our individual utilities. We want to prevent injuries. We don't want anyone to be bitten or have any kind of injury from dealing with an aggressive or overly aggressive animal. And we also need to keep in mind that the owners of these animals, they are our clients, our ratepayers, our members, and we need to keep that in mind, that all of these people are important. So we need to keep ourselves at the forefront of our mind, the ratepayers or the customers at the forefront of our mind, and make sure that we follow any set procedures established from our individual utilities. So there's roughly 77 million dogs in the United States. Out of all the bites that happen, roughly 1,000 of them require treatment each day. So today, roughly 1,000 bites are going to require some kind of a treatment at a hospital emergency room or some kind of healthcare facility. 80% of those are bitten by the pets bite their owners. They bite their masters. So keep that in mind. Most of the time, it is the people that takes care of them that they bite. Most of the victims tend to be children. And if you think about it, it makes sense. Children or any adult that's not familiar with animals is going to have a hard time maintaining good relationship with animal, not realizing that especially if they're a child, that it's not a stuffed toy, that it's a living, breathing thing, and they don't know how to deal with them and successfully deal with them. So because of that, dog bites can be prevented. It's important to realize that we can utilize our policies and procedures, enact a plan that we have set in our mind, and keep ourselves protected. So that's important. Remember, when you come across an unknown dog, it is important to maintain eye contact. It's important because dogs are pack animals, and being pack animals, there is a hierarchy and there is an alpha dog, and dogs respond to this. This is their nature. So if you maintain eye contact, and then you can establish that you're the alpha in this area of the world that you're dealing in. Now, there is a sort of thin line there. You don't want to be overly aggressive with an animal, make sudden movements, and corner the animal, corner the dog, so it has no other choice but to attack or be aggressive. Just like any animal, just like humans, when cornered and threatened, they will attack. So maintain eye contact without being aggressive. You want to show authority in the situation. You do not want to become a threat to the animal. So do not approach or touch the animal. I don't care what the owner says. The owner has a particular idea of how the animal acts and what the animal's like, and that's because it's their pet. If it's not your pet, you don't know the animal, there's no need for you to approach it, whether you love an animal's dogs or any other kind of animal at all anyway. So keep that in mind. Now, it's important on this slide as we look at The behavior of dogs and fear, aggression, and if they're anxious or curious, these are general statements. Realize that some of these behaviors are going to be particular or may not be particular to certain breeds. So just keep in mind, I would say the best one to look at is the showing of teeth or the hair bristling does show aggression in most breeds of dogs and animals. They're giving you a warning. Don't mess with me. And you probably ought to heed that warning. Now, having said that, when you talk about fear, having a curved tail, hunkering down, or a slow tail that's wagging, being anxious and curious, in general, these may be true. But they're not going to be true in every situation. So if it's an unknown dog, some kind of unknown animal, be wary of following these general type behavioral patterns and applying it to that particular dog. May not work out well for you if that's what you do. So, as in everything, whether you're dealing with an aggressive animal or whether you're dealing with a dog, an aggressive dog or a startled dog, or whether you're talking about your own personal security when you're out in public, it's important to maintain an awareness and evaluate your surroundings. Being aware of where an animal may be or could be, being aware of where you can escape to, having an idea in your mind what your how you're going to act or react if you run across an unknown animal or dog. Being able to assess the dog using some of the techniques we've talked about. Not being afraid of the dog. Obviously, animals can sense fear, and you do not want to give them the idea that you are afraid of them. No sudden movements so that you don't startle the dog. It's awful easy to assume that the dog is friendly, but I would encourage you not to do that. It's important to watch what the dog is doing and maintain eye contact. It's also important to stand your ground. Even if you need to remove yourself from the situation, you want to do it in a slow, predictable way, and you don't want to give the dog any kind of thoughts that the dog can be the alpha in the situation, and keep that in mind. So it's always great in any kind of safety situation to be proactive, and when you're dealing with animals, it's no different. So make sure you know which houses, which customers, which ratepayers have dogs. Make sure you know that people going out to read meters or to terminate service or to leave some kind of literature for the customer or the ratepayer, that you know what's going on. And in some instances, you may need to even call ahead and make sure that the animal is secured before you show up. This is really important that you be proactive and have a plan. Remember, you've got all these things to think about. You have to think about the member or your customer. You have to think about the dog or the animal that you need to deal with. You have to think about what policies and procedures that are in place at your utility that you need to follow. And obviously, you don't want to get bitten or hurt, so you need to think of yourself. So this is a little bit of a juggling act, but if you just follow the policies and procedures, whether they're written down somewhere or they're verbal, you should be okay. I often tell people in the event you run into an overly aggressive dog or animal, use your ball cap. Give that animal a target. If you think they're going to bite, if they're charging you, take your ball cap, stick the back end of that ball cap in their mouth, let them have that. You can get you another ball cap. You don't want to be bitten, so keep that in mind. Now, a lot of places make use of dog repellent. If you have it, that's great. You need to be trained. Only the people who are trained should use it. You need to know when it should be used. It shouldn't be overused or underused. You need to know exactly when to use it and how to use it. Just similar to pepper spray that a police officer or sheriff deputy may use, you need to be aware of the weather conditions. You don't want to dose yourself with it. That can present real issues. So you need to know, how long do the effects last? Is it harmful to humans? Does it expire or go bad? If it expires and goes bad, it may be more toxic or less toxic. And so you want to be aware of all that sort of stuff. You want to make sure you know which way the wind's blowing. You don't want it on you if at all possible. And because of that, you want to discard after use. You want to make sure that it's properly stored so that it doesn't go bad, that the shelf life is maximized. And you absolutely want to wash your hands after handling it or dispensing it. It would be real easy to get it on your hands, on your palms, on the back of your hands, and wipe it on your forehead, and then let sweat carry it in your eyes. You don't want to do that. Don't want to do that at all. If you have any kind of injuries, it doesn't matter what the injuries are, you need to report those immediately. Someone, either in human resource or in the safety department, needs to figure out, is this a first aid type incident, or is it something that needs to be reported, put on the OSHA 300 log? So any kind of bite needs to be reported. If you need medical attention beyond first aid, you need to get that. It's important that you get it, and it's also important that you notify the animal owner. There's another slide coming up. We'll talk about this in a little bit more detail. But each area, each county, each city, each municipality, they've got different rules for dealing with these things. And it may be important that the dog be secured for a number of days. It may be important that the animal get tested, make sure its shots are up to date, that sort of thing. You want to collect information in advance when you go to a particular residence or a particular address, especially if they're known to have animals. You make every effort that you can, that's reasonable and humanly possible, to contact the customer or the members before you enter their property. Make sure you share information on any dog that shows aggression, whether it's in the system or it's not in the system. A lot of the times when we talk about safety and health, we talk about active talking and active listening, good communication skills where you all talk and share information. This is absolutely no different. In fact, it may be more important when we're dealing with an aggressive animal, that people know what they're dealing with and have a policy, have procedures, and have a plan put in place. A lot of the software systems that utilities have give you an area where you can put notes, where you can have identification of special hazards, any special hazard, not just aggressive dogs, but in particular aggressive dogs, since that's what we're talking about. Keep those things in mind. Make certain that you do have a backup plan in case you find an unsuspected dog showing aggression. So you need to have that in the back of your mind, just like you would for any kind of personal safety issues. So what I would tell you is, if you run across a pack of aggressive dogs, that pack is going to have an alpha dog. And if it shows aggression and it's trying to bite you, typically the paws of the dogs are the most sensitive part of the dog. And so if you step on a paw and the alpha of the group doesn't like it and runs away, then the rest of the pack will follow. So keep that in mind. That's something that you can do. That's something you can do. Remember, always report any incidents. Seek attention, medical attention if you've been bitten. Contact the owner. Obtain shot and health records. Like I said, the animal may need to be secured for a number of days, but you definitely want to make sure that the dog's had its shots. You want to be properly evaluated by a medical professional and all that good stuff. I also would like to remind you that if you have any questions, whether it pertains to this particular presentation or safety and health issues, make sure you contact your JTNS instructor. That's what we're here for. We want to help you. We want to provide service for you. I cannot promise you that we will know the answer right off the top of our head. Quite often we have been given really complex questions, and sometimes an immediate answer is not necessary. But what we will do is we will look up and research whatever question you have and get back with you as quickly as we can. We want to do that. We want to provide this service, and don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to bring up any question, whether it pertains to this, like I said, this presentation on aggressive dogs and animals, or if it has to do with some other safety and health issue. Thank you. Have a good day, and see you next time.